Hey, good morning, everybody. Everybody that loves updates, raise your hand. What? No hands up? Well, I just discovered that Ecamm as well as Apple on my MacBook did did simultaneous updates. Isn't that great? And so we had all kinds of technological difficulties this morning. Thank you guys for joining in today. And this is Executive Espresso. I'm Doc Heath, and we're here with about 18, 20 minutes of a caffeinated conversation with a great guy. And he is Byron Athene. He is a philosopher, a qualified psychotherapist, a certified mindset coach, a certified NLP coach practitioner. That's neuro linguistic programming, one of my favorite things, a clinical supervisor, trainer, and hypnotherapist. And we're here to talk about why is it so easy for us to get in our own way. He's going to talk about how that one negative thing can really just eclipse all the other positive things in our life, and then some secrets of existence and purpose. And so, Byron, thank you for being here today. Pleasure to have you. I hope your
Thanks, Doc.
morning is technologically gremlin free. And but yeah, what did I leave out? Tell us about yourself.
Oh, thanks, Heath. Well, first of all, it's a pleasure meeting you, and thanks for this opportunity. Well, yeah, we've got 18 minutes, so yeah, I think you did give a good summary in terms of my professional pursuits or even personal pursuits. I'm also an author. I'm working on a book. I've developed my own therapeutic approach, and I'm writing a book that describes what the approach is.
Wow, that's incredible. How's the book going?
It's going really well. Yes, it's going really well. Right now, I'm just using it to consolidate the work that I do with my clients. So it's not finished yet. It's hopefully in a readable enough state. So when I finish with a client, I say to them, here's a copy of the book. So yeah, feel keep up the good work. Here are some things that we may not have covered, and there's a reminder of the things that we have covered.
Gosh, that's fantastic. I look forward to taking a look at that. Now, you do NLP. Tell the audience a little bit about NLP because a lot aren't familiar with those particular initials.
Yeah. Well, as you expanded, NLP stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. It was developed by two guys, Richard Bandler and John Grinder, in the 1970s, I believe, and they modeled about six or seven people who were experts in their own field, and so they modeled these people. They analyzed their techniques to try to get to the bare bones and explain why they were so effective. And one of the guys they modeled was someone called Milton Erickson. He's usually regarded one of the best hypnotherapists who ever lived. Uh, and they realized that Milton Erickson was like a master of language. He would use language in a very, very precise and skilled way. And so NLP is generally a system that helps us understand that our we don't see reality. Instead, we see a model of that reality. So once we realize that, we're much more likely to ensure that the model matches reality as much as possible. And the model is represented in a certain way, and we feel the way we do because of how we represent it. So we can manipulate those representations, and that will have a knock-on effect of making us feel differently. Pretty much, that's
Yeah,
one way to
that
sum one of the
I've
aspects.
always thought that was so fascinating. If you pick it apart, literally neurological, linguistic, language, and programming. So the programming comes through the language that we speak
Yeah,
inside of our heads
yeah,
that literally programs the brain itself. And well, there's a relatively famous book that uses that technique, and I don't even think he knows he's using that technique. But
mhm.
it's James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, because
Okay,
he distinguishes between saying to yourself, and I think this is ripped straight from John Grinder and Richard Bandler, is there's a big difference in saying, um, I am quitting smoking and saying I am not a smoker.
yeah,
What if you're not
definitely,
a smoker? That's a completely different type of programming. Your brain comes to absorb that programming where
yeah,
picking up a cigarette is not just not something you do, because that doesn't define who you are. Well, that leads into my first question. Why do you think it's so easy for people, especially maybe business owners, entrepreneurs, managers? Why is it so easy for even really smart people to get in their own way?
Yeah, really, really, really good question. So it's really easy for people to get in their own way because at any given moment we are running subconscious processes that we may or may not be aware of, and those subconscious processes are always there's always positive intent, and those programs are always logical. But if we don't know what the programs are, we don't see the positive intent in them, and we don't see how it makes sense. So that's why anxiety is there to protect someone, but it's a form of overprotection. So if we understood that, we could potentially speak to that part and let it know that it doesn't have to overprotect us. It can just continue protecting us in an appropriate way.
I love that. I like to think of anxiety as my best friend, my life coach. It's information, and here's my programming. It's information. It's when I was a kid growing up, all of us hot rod boys. I had a Chevrolet Chevelle, and I wish I still had it. It'd be worth a lot of money, but my sister wrecked it. But all of us boys fantasized about having nitrous oxide injectors on our
Okay.
vehicles. I view my anxiety as a nitrous oxide injection that helps me get places.
Yeah.
I don't view it as a threat to me at all. It's uncomfortable because, of course, what use would anxiety be if it were comfortable? But yeah, it's all about programming. Why do you think that we focus on the one negative thing in our lives amidst an ocean of positive things? It really does seem like we focus in on, like this morning, you and I were talking that, Apple and Ecamm seem to have this simultaneous update. And literally the buttons on my screen went off, but I didn't really focus on that. I focused on this is going to be a fun conversation with Byron. He does one of my favorite things, NLP. This is just a hurdle. But why do you think that people focus on the negative amidst the positive?
I think that's due to us living again. This is subconsciously. We are subconsciously living in adequate or perfect worlds. As soon as we perceive an inadequate thing, or a thing that leads us to believe that it's not an inadequate world or an imperfect world, we focus on that. So let's say there's 99 good things and one bad thing. Those 99 things, we don't have to worry about them. They're working. So we go to the problem, and we try to problem solve in various ways, and we're almost a lot of the time we're transfixed on that problem until we solve it, or until we accept that it's not going to be solved, or until we just focus on something else. But I think that's what we do. We default to the problem.
I think we really, I'm looking to see if my mute button's off. I think that we really do default, and I think that is a bit of a safety mechanism. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing for our
No,
brains to pick upon the negative, because the negative may be an oncoming semi truck trailer
exactly.
that would run us over. Or, hey,
Exactly.
Byron, where I live, right outside this window here is a swimming pool. And I was talking to a client yesterday explaining this very concept, that without focusing on potential negatives or problems, it would put us in great danger, because a couple of years ago, I shot with my shotgun six poisonous water moccasins in my swimming pool.
Okay.
Yeah, six of them. Actually, I shot four. My son shot two. So without that alert mechanism, I would have said, "Okay, there's six water moccasins. Who's first?" But since my brain has that on the radar, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a thing to put into perspective well with your NLP programming. That's a great thing. Now,
Yeah.
the next one is a really big topic, and I know we don't have a lot of time for this, but give us your thoughts on how we as humans, uh, business owners, entrepreneurs, can approach existence and purpose. What are those, and how can we leverage some of the techniques that you teach with our own existence and our own purpose?
Okay, existence and purpose. So I think at heart I'm an existentialist, which means that I'm aware that life has the meaning that we give it. So if we say life is meaningless, it's going to be meaningless to us. If we say life is heaven, it's going to be heaven for us. So that's a good starting place. Just realizing that life has the meaning that we give it. And there are lots of different ways of giving life more meaning. So, say for example, let's say many people don't really appreciate the low odds of being born. So let's imagine that our parents were destined to be born. They were destined to grow up where they did, destined to meet one another, destined to like one another, destined to show they liked one another, destined to start a relationship, destined to conceive us. At the moment that they did, there is still a 1 in 150 million plus 1 in 12 chance that we were the specific sperm that made it to the specific egg. And those are crazy odds. Those are crazy
Wow.
odds alone. But that's a skewed probability because our parents weren't destined to be born. They weren't destined to do what they did. The crazy odds that relate to us also related to them. In fact, those crazy odds that relate to us, comparable odds, relate to every ancestor that we have going right back to the beginning of time. So the
Wow.
odds of us being born, exactly, the odds of us being born is almost virtually zero. It's virtually zero. So
Wow.
if you look at life within that context, you're going to have a more, I think, objective view of meaning and purpose.
That is so wonderful. I love that. I love that. And I heard something else the other day that really fascinated me. Since you're an existentialist, try this on for size. I listen every evening to Father Mike Schmidt, as some of the viewers that watch me know that I talk about him a lot. But it's just kind of a meditative podcast, and he brings up some good points about scripture and things like that. But he's fairly famous in Catholic circles. I'm not a Catholic, by the way, but I still find great value in his work.
Okay.
But his mentor said to him one time, he said, no one will remember you. And he said, oh, I know. And he said, no one will remember you. He said, everyone dies twice. Everyone dies twice. Oh gosh, look at that! I didn't know that did that. Balloons came up. Let's see if I can do that again. Hey, look at that! Hey, there's the update. This is what the update does. All that trouble for a peace sign and some balloons. That's great.
It's a party.
Yeah, but he said everyone dies twice, and the first time you die physically, but the second time you die is when the last person on earth speaks your name.
Okay.
When the last person's one of these days, someone will say Byron Athene for the last time. Someone will say Heath for the last time. So I think that tells me that I really do need to put my life in perspective and truly live in the moment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think
Definitely.
that we miss that on that a lot. Well,
Yeah.
speaking of which, just some quick answers here, real quick.
Okay.
What is your own top mental struggle?
Own top mental struggle has been dealing with a stutter. I've got a stutter, speech impediment stutter, and it's not so bad now. But when I was younger, it ruled my life. I didn't like talking because of it. I was almost a recluse, almost a hermit. I didn't like, not quite agoraphobic, but almost. I mean, I was just apprehensive. If I went outside, someone would try and speak to me, and I'd be there like a stuttering wreck. So I had really low self esteem because of it. But now I've come to terms with it. I used to see it as like my worst attribute, but now I see it as one of my best attributes because that
Yeah.
prompted a level of introspection, and I'm where I am now because of that introspection.
I would have, I read that in your bio. I would have never known. By the way, I believe I am a horrible speaker. I catch
Really?
myself stuttering all the time. When you hear me speaking here, it's because I'm working very hard to
Okay.
leave out fillers and
Sure.
take breaths.
Sure.
But here's something I figured out, Byron, is that everybody stutters. Every
Yeah.
human stutters, but the people that get labeled stutters do it out loud.
Yeah.
Everyone else does it in their head. It's just not audible
Yeah.
because we stutter around with our thinking, putting our thinking in order, and then sometimes we stutter. My dad used to say, who also stuttered. My dad used to say, "I got my tongue wrapped around my eye teeth, and I can't see a word I'm saying." And so I do that a lot myself. Well, what's your best current mindset hack? What's your go-to when your mind's not in the place where is in a healthy direction for your life?
Yeah. Oh wow, best mindset hack. Well, apologies if this is too meta, but my best mindset hack is to acknowledge that mindset is everything. Mindset is everything. So we're in reality. We're not going to see reality, but I'm going to see our stories or narratives, and that's what prompts our emotions. Our stories and narratives come from a mindset. So if we see how maximal that mindset is, if we see how um, all encompassing that mindset is, we're much more likely to ensure it's rational and positive and affluent. I guess we're much more likely to ensure that it's the mindset we want to have as opposed to the mindset we think we're stuck with,
Yeah,
if that makes
yeah.
sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. It makes we literally are the designers of our own reality,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
and I ask myself, okay, the weather in here is not the weather out there. The weather in here creates the climate out there. So, what kind of
Yeah.
climate do you want to live in? Just real quick, how do you
Yeah.
get more out of life? Just real quick, your tip for getting more out of life.
Well, yeah, I guess that it's the whole just diving into the whole stories and narratives things, just to realize that you are the hero of your own story, but you do have control over what that hero kind of consists of. And so, because of that, we have complete autonomy, and we sometimes use that autonomy to relegate ourselves to being a secondary supporting character in someone else's story.
Hey, and
Oh,
someone's trying to make you a part of their story right now by calling you.
that's my
Hey,
mum. She
well, let's
never
see.
calls.
How can folks get in touch with you?
Well, by going to our website, I believe that. Did you? I
It is
think.
in the link, and yes,
Yeah.
it's
So
Byron
yeah,
Athene, Byron
yeah.
Athene, ByronAthene.com. And we look forward to seeing your book come out. And everybody on Executive Espresso, thank you for joining us. If you know someone that struggles with mindset, share this out to them. And we will be back at the top of the hour with financial guru Chad Hufford. And so join us at the top of the hour. And gosh, we got to have Byron back. We just got started on our conversation. We already have to go. But thank you so much for being here. And we'll catch you next time.
Oh, thank you. Bye.